I recently ran across this thing called HasAgent. This is a Windows application that you install obviously on Windows for Home Assistant. It allows you to interact with Home Assistant, including getting notifications sent to your PC from Home Assistant, as well as sending information back to your Home Assistant instance from your PC. In addition, you can also do quick commands to do things in Home Assistant directly from your PC. So I thought we'd take a look at that today. So let's talk about what HasAgent is. HasAgent's made by Lab 2 Research. It's a person, and I don't know his name, but HasAgent is a Windows-based client application for Home Assistant. So it's meant to be a companion app for Home Assistant. It doesn't really do anything unless you're running Home Assistant. So make sure you're doing that. It's completely free. Always stay that way is what he says there. So here are some of the core functions of it. Notifications. You can receive notifications and show them using the Windows built-in Toast pop-ups. And optionally attach images, which I do when I get an alert on my camera. This requires installation of the HasAgent notifier integration. You can also use it as a media player device to control what's playing and send text to speech, which requires the installation of the HasAgent media player integration. You have quick access or quick actions allow you to do things directly from keyboard shortcuts. You have some commands you can run to control your PC or other Windows-based device through Home Assistant. So you can actually go from Home Assistant to do something to your PC. You have 29 sensors from your PC to monitor every aspect of your PC. There is a web view to show websites. Satellite service uses the service to collect sensor data and execute commands even when you're not logged in. That's on your Windows PC. And all entities are dynamically acquired from your Home Assistant instance. Commands and sensors are automatically added to your Home Assistant instance. So installing HasAgent is super simple. You just download the latest installer, run it, and you're done. The installer is signed, so it won't download and it says do weird stuff. It just places everything where it should, launches the right parameter. After installing, the onboarding process will help you get everything configured step by step. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and download the installer on this computer right here that I'm filming on. And then we will go through all the steps to set it up. Obviously, it's a standard install. And then select the startup language is English. The setup has determined that some of the prerequisites needed to run HasAgent are missing. This wizard will assist you in getting and installing those. So you'll see what those are next. It runs on .NET. So you need to have the .NET runtime installed. And it's going to install those prerequisites for HasAgent. And it will tell you what it's doing. It'll take a couple of minutes, so we'll wait on that. All right, so now it says it requires 84 megabytes in this directory, which is fine. It released under the MIT license, which is, you know what MIT license is. You must agree to the terms and conditions before installing. So make sure you read that for the terms and conditions. We'll click on install. Now it's going to go through and set up a bunch of stuff in here. And now it's setting up some information here, configuring the satellite service, creating the API port binding. It's going so fast, I can't even show you. Now, this is something that I found when I installed this on my laptop. It says it looks like you're using an alternative scaling. This may not result in some parts of HasAgent looking as intended. He's very responsive to reports on GitHub. He will get to it when he can. So if you have any issues, make sure you report him. I think he's provided some really good support over there. Again, this message only shows one time, so we'll just click OK and get out of that. And now we have the HasAgent onboarding, 1 of 9, which is probably hard to see, but that's what it says up there. It looks like this is the first time you've launched it. If you want, we can go through the configuration. Otherwise, you can do it. You can just close it out. But one of the things you see here is this alternative scaling, which I don't quite understand, shows some of the words kind of clipped off. So you want the interface language and you want the name of the device, whatever you want to call it. It pulls the standard Windows device in here first. You can change it if you want to. Device name is used to identify your machine on Home Assistant. It is also suggested as a prefix for your commands and sensors. So I'm going to put a underscore in there actually so that it's one word. And we'll click on next. HasAgent can launch when you log into Windows. I want it to do that because if I'm using the hotkeys to do something, I want it to always be there. In addition, I want it to have the notifications come to my screen and the Toast pop-ups. So I want to enable that. That is now successful. And then it has its own internal API, so Home Assistant can send requests like notifications or text-to-speech. Do you want to enable it? It's kind of pointless if you don't enable it, so yes, and you can change the port. 5115 is default. You can choose which modules to enable. They require HA integration, so you have to install it in notifications and the media player and text-to-speech. I will cover that in a minute. Remember that 5115 is the default port. Only change it if you change it in Home Assistant. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so you need to install the HAS Agent Notifier and HAS Agent Media Player before you can go on to the next step. It says to follow these steps. Install the Notifier and Media Player, restart Home Assistant, configure a Notifier or Media Player entity, restart Home Assistant. So we will do both of those now. If you want to read about those and how to install them, you can click on the links in the installer and it will take you to the two different pages. The HAS Agent Notifier page talks about what it is, configuration. We will do this in Home Assistant in a few minutes. And then the Media Player is the same way. You install it through HACS. If you're not familiar with what HACS is, make sure you go to my Home Assistant page or my Home Assistant Getting Started Back to the Basics video, and we'll talk about what HACS is and how to use it. So I have it installed. I'm going to run it through HACS here. Let me get rid of myself for a second. We're going to go to Integrations, Explore and Download Repositories, and we will search for Agent. And you'll see HAS Agent Notifier here and HAS Agent Media Player. You click on each one of them. It will pull up the information just like you saw on the GitHub page. And then you will download this repository with HACS. Again, it will come up here and it tells you where it's installed. Remember, you need to restart Home Assistant before changes can be applied. So we'll download it. It'll go through the install process. Okay, and we're going to get rid of the new repositories and see what we have here. We do have now the Agent Notifier says pending restart, so we need to do that. We're going to do the other agent, which is HAS Agent Media Player. And same thing, shows you what the GitHub page is. You can control your PC as if it were a regular media player, regardless of what application is actually playing. Control volume, next, previous stop, through Home Assistant. As a bonus, you can use your PC as a text-to-speech target. So we'll download this one as well. And download, it will go through the install. And you see both of these require a restart. So we will go over to our navigation page. And we will restart Home Assistant. First, we'll check our configuration, restart. And as you restart it, when it comes back, it'll have the ability to use it. All right, so now that that is restarting, let's go over to our Home Assistant instance. And let's go ahead and do our configuration.yaml setup. Now you can get into Home Assistant.yaml a number of different ways. You can use Visual Studio Code, which is what I have here, mapped to a Samba share. Or you can go into file editor on your Home Assistant instance. There's a lot of ways to get to it, but you want to go into configuration.yaml and you want to add a section called HAS Agent, or whatever you want to call it. It's called HAS Agent Yoga for me. The platform is the HAS Agent Notifier, and the resource is the PC that you have HAS Agent running on. Now you can also generate another one of these. And I'm just going to do this for show here. I am running this now on my other PC. So I'm going to call this HAS Agent Superman, which is my PC name. And it's again the HAS Agent Notifier. And the port and IP address is going to be that port and IP address. Each one of these things will show up as a notification option in your Home Assistant instance. So when you click on Call Service, and you want to do a notify, you can choose these. And I will show you that in just a moment. You could potentially restart Home Assistant just one time by doing the HACS and then adding this at restart. But it may not know what these HAS Agent Notifiers are until you actually restart it after installing HACS. So I would just do the 2 restarts just to be safe. All right, so now we have HACS, a notifier installed. We also have the configuration.yaml setup. So we have notification or notifier options within Home Assistant. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back over to the HACS the Has agent, and we're going to continue. So we've done all these steps. We're going to click on next. And to learn which entities you have configured and send quick actions, Has agent uses Home Assistant's API. So you have to tell it where it is. And there's a couple things you have to do. First of all, set your server URI. It says it should be okay like this. It might be if you're running only one instance of Home Assistant. If not, you're going to need to put in either an IP address, or you're going to need to put in the fully qualified domain name, if that's what you're using internally, of your Home Assistant instance, and then the port of that instance. So 8123 is where Home Assistant usually is. And I apologize for that being really small on the screen. I can't really make it any bigger at this point. You also need a long-lived access token. And to get that, you're going to go into your profile on Home Assistant. You're going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and you're going to create a token. And you're going to give that token a name. I'm going to call this Has agent on Superman. Click OK. It will generate the token. You'll need to copy that token. And then you can go back into the installer and you paste the token in here and you test the connection. And if it's successful, you will get a connection OK, and then it'll tell you your Home Assistant version for niceties. Click on next. Commands and sensors are sent through MQTT, so you need an MQTT server running. And if you don't know how to do that, there's a whole video series that I've done on MQTT. You can look up that. So you need the IP address of the MQTT server that you're using, or the fully qualified domain name, the port number, and then the username and password. And then your discovery prefix, leave it default if you're not sure. We'll just leave it as default. That works fine for me. We will click on next. And then an easy way to pull up your quick actions is to use a global hotkey. This way, whatever you're doing on your machine, you can always interact with Home Assistant. So I'll leave it as default. Control-Alt-Q on my keyboard will bring up the quick actions screen. Click on next. Now, if you want Has agent, Has agent can check for updates in the background. You'll get notifications letting you know. I do want to do that because it's still in development. I want the newest stuff. And when there's an update, it will offer the option to open the release page. But if you want, Has agent can download and launch the installer for you. I don't want to do that. That's too much automation for me. I could be in the middle of something else, and I don't want that to happen. So no for that. And then we're all done. Has agent will now restart to activate your configuration. If you've enabled notifications, you'll get an elevation request. That's that thing that pops up under Windows and says, hey, do you want to allow this or not? All right, so let's finish that and let it do its thing. And now it's creating the API port binding, and a lot of stuff just happened. So it created the API port binding, waiting for previous instance to close, relaunch Has agent. Now I did have an issue on my laptop when I did this. I had to force close the other Has agent and then reopen it again. We'll see if that occurs this time or not. And you can see here, Has agent is still active after 20 seconds. Please close all instances and restart manually. So that is probably a bug that's probably been reported on their GitHub page. So let me restart that, close it all out, and I will restart. And it says, what would you like to do? I right-click the little taskbar icon, and I want to exit this completely out. And then I will restart Has agent again. Let me give that a second. So what I'm seeing down in my taskbar is that I'm still seeing 2 instances of it. So I may have to go to Task Manager and actually close out that. So let me go down and kill out Has agent. And as I get rid of it, it gets rid of part of it. So let me see if there's another one down here as a service. In task. So I've just ended all of the Has agent services and tasks, and I'm going to restart it now. That obviously is an issue because it happened both on my laptop and on my desktop. All right, let me just bring up the window, and you can always get to the window by right-clicking on the icon. I'll show you that over here. If you right-click on this icon, you get some window options to do that. So I'm going to do that on my desktop over here, and that way you can see it better. So let me click on Has agent. So you can see that the local API, the Home Assistant API, MQTT are all okay. So I'm just going to go quickly into the configuration. We'll take a look at a few things here. English, and again, you can see that this is kind of messed up when you look at it. If you hover over these things, it does change it. And I think this is a known issue that's being worked on. There's a beta version that actually has this being fixed, I believe. HAS agent will wait a while before notifying you of disconnects from MQTT. You can set the disconnect grace period. External tools allows you to configure bindings. So HAS agent will launch URLs using your default browser. If you want, you can also configure a specific browser. You can configure HAS agent to use a specific executor like Perl or Python. None of this stuff I've messed with right now, so we'll leave that alone. Your Home Assistant entities are based from here. This again is your server URI and your API token. We already took care of all that. Hotkey. This is the hotkey. Control-Alt-Q will bring up this window. I'll leave it as that. Local API, we're not going to do anything with. It's already enabled. Local storage. You can keep images for 7 days. There's a bunch of stuff here that you don't need to mess with from the beginning. You can look at logging as well. HAS agent can act as media player for Home Assistant, so you'll be able to control any media that's playing and send text to speech. The local API needs to be enabled. It is enabled here. MQTT is already what we set up earlier. Notifications, you want to accept notifications, and you want to ignore certificate errors for images. This is where all of the business works, or this is the big part of this, right? Being able to receive notifications. And of course, you can show a test notification, which will then show you a pop-up on the screen. It worked for me. It's outside the window of the recording here, so you did not actually see that, but it did work. Satellite service is running. You can disable this or enable it. You can reinstall the service. You can look at the service logs folder. On startup is enabled, and tray icon and updates, all of that we already set. So if you change anything, you can save the configuration. I'm not going to restart now because I didn't really do anything. The big fun stuff here is quick actions. So we're going to define a new quick action, and we're going to add new here. And these are all of the things that Home Assistant has told the HAS agent it knows about. So we're just going to pick on a light here, and we're going to try to find it. Again, this is kind of funny looking just because of the aspect ratio or whatever that's set at the beginning. But if you hover over these, it will actually fix this stuff or display it properly. So let's just mess with my guest lamp here. I will click that, and the desired action, I want to toggle that guest lamp. So I'll click on toggle here, and I'll just say guest lamp. It will pull the entity name unless you describe or set it in here. And then your hotkey combination, I will set as Control-Alt-G for guest lamp. Enable the hotkey, store the quick action, and then store the quick action again here. Now if I hit Control-Alt-Q, and let me just show you on my Home Assistant dashboard. This is the guest lamp. I'm going to hit the hotkey, G, and immediately, just by hitting the hotkey, it turns that on or off. So if I'm sitting here working, for example, on my computer, and I want to toggle something, it's just as simple as turning on, that hotkey and making it go. Now, if I do Control-Alt-Q, a couple things happen. It brings up this screen. That's the hotkey for HAS agent, and it also gives you the ability to toggle these things. Now, again, one of the issues I have is that the display is funny because I'm using some sort of weird thing it says. But there is a GitHub issue opened on the way this looks, and I think they're working on the beta version, and so soon we'll have a fix for that. All right, so let's go back in here, and let's look at local sensors. So we can do a local sensor from my computer. So if I do add new, these are all the sensors that it knows about in here. And it can do something like current CPU load sensor, and the name is Superman Desktop CPU load, store sensor, and then store and activate the sensors. And now it has a sensor. So you have quick actions are okay, sensors are okay because those are already there. So now we're able to control stuff and we're able to get information in. Now let me show you what it looks like on my laptop over here. If we look at the local sensors here, I've got a battery sensor set up, and it's sending the battery information over to Home Assistant. And I can show you that over in my Home Assistant setup here, that this Yoga laptop battery is being displayed in this particular graph because it's an entity that's been put into Home Assistant from the HAS agent. So anything like that that you send over to Home Assistant from the HAS agent, you can then graph or look at it or activate on. Let's say your battery's getting low on your laptop or something, you could actually have an automation that tells Home Assistant to alert you to plug your laptop in. There's all kinds of crazy ways you can do things with Home Assistant, and you can use any of those sensors that are in the HAS agent in order to do that. And if we look at just a few of them, again, you have your audio, your active windows, battery, CPU loads, current clock speed, volume, display. By the way, anything that you click on, if you want to know what it means and you want more information on it, you can click or look at this window in the description. It tells you exactly what is over here, whether your microphone is active or whether or not your webcam is active. Those are really handy because those two right there, if I'm in a meeting and I want my light to come on, I have a light here in my office or outside my office door, that if I'm in a meeting, I want that light to come on. You can use the HAS agent to go in there, and if my webcam or my microphone, because sometimes I don't turn the webcam on, if my microphone is active, then it will automatically turn that light on. So you can set up automations from HAS agent to Home Assistant to make stuff like that happen. And then storage provides the labels, total size, available space, use space, and file system, all present, non-removable disks. So yes, you can get storage space and disk space remaining on your Home Assistant instance to do automation against that if you want to do that. Okay, so finally, and I thought this was to be a shorter video, but it's turning into be another long video. When you get notifications, I will show you a couple of notifications that I have set up on my Home Assistant instance on the laptop. And these will show up down here as toast pop-ups. One of them is if my guest lamp is turned on or off. So if I force my guest lamp on, or actually on, you'll see a little pop-up. Make sure you're looking down here in the corner. You'll see it for a moment. So now you see HAS agent has told me my guest lamp is on, and that's what the pop-up is. And you'll get a little sound if your computer's set up for sounds when you get those toaster pop-ups. But that's what that shows. And if you have an image such as a camera or a notification where you have something going on with that camera, you can also set that up over here as well. So let me show you what it looks like whenever there's a notification from one of my cameras. And you can see that we got the notification. You can even pull them back up in your history under HAS agent and look at all the different notifications that come in. You can see that my image showed up as a toast pop-up, but also down here as well. So that makes it really nice when you're sitting there and you want to get a quick look at whatever triggered the camera, or you want to send an image on over. All right, so how did we get the notification for, let's talk about the guest lamp. That's an easy one. If we go into our configuration for automation, anytime the guest lamp gets turned on, and this is for a specific reason in my use case, is I'll get a notification on my phone, on my mobile device through my app. But in addition, I've also set up a notification as a service. So I call a service, notification, send it with the HAS agent Yoga. That is the name we gave it in here. So HAS agent Yoga is the name of the notifier that we're using. And the title and message are what you want it to be. You can also send data. So if you want the toast pop-up to be up for 10, 15 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever, you can put up some extra values in here. And those values are available in the HAS agent documentation. HAS agent can do much more than just what I'm demonstrating today. And there's a lot of information here that talks about how to do that. One of the items here under notifications, actually down here under notification usage and examples, if you did want that pop-up to stay up longer or shorter, you can set a duration under the data section in here. So if we said duration 10, that would save that toast pop-up or keep that toast pop-up for 10 seconds on there. But you can look through all of these examples. There's also debugging available here. Media player usage and examples. And one of the things you can do with media player is not media player. One of the things you can do with WebView is you can bring up a URL, and you can also bring up that URL directly from the taskbar. So if I go over to my laptop and I right-click this now, when I right-click, it actually brings up my Home Assistant dashboard here. And if I want to get back to the settings, I just double click here. And then I can go in here under commands. I've set up a command for WebView. Under the configuration command parameters, I set it this way with a URL, and then some of the parameters you want to use here. Save, store the command, store the active commands, and then that's available under configuration under tray icon. You can set that up to show web view anytime you right click on that tray icon. It also has a URL here as well that you set, and that when you right click on it, brings up that URL down here. And then you can change the size here to make it fit whatever the dashboard's going to be. You'd have to experiment with whatever size you wanted that to be. Save the configuration. And then, of course, it'll restart anytime it needs to restart. And then if you right click on it, it'll bring that up in whatever size you told to bring it up. So I could make this actually taller and see my whole dashboard in one shot. Again, double clicking will bring up that right there. All right, so this video has gotten pretty long. Make sure you read the documentation if you have questions. There are plenty of examples of things you can do with your computer, with Home Assistant, with all of the stuff that interacts with Home Assistant. I didn't get to the media player part, but this video is already super long. I'm going to end it right there. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below or on Discord. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. That helps the channel grow, helps the algorithm to know that people are watching my content. And if you want to support me, there are various ways through the thanks button, through the joining of the channel, Ko-fi, Patreon, all of that's all listed here. So thank you again. We will see you on the next video.